What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 2 of Bound to Improve. My name is Landon Eller.
And I'm Chris Pound. And for the book that we chose to read this week was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Who is Dale Carnegie? He was an American writer and lecturer who was known for his self-improvement courses, books, and public speaking programs. This really kind of exploded him, and he's got many other books that seem like they are also good reads. So I'll kind of let Landon take it away from here.
Yeah, so we're just going to go into a brief theme of the book and why we chose it. So the main reason it revolves around effective communication and building positive relationships to achieve personal and professional success. It's a great book to choose because it offers timeless, practical advice on enhancing your social skills. And it even mentioned before the book kicked off, 85% of one's financial success is due to skills in human engineering, to personality and the ability to lead people.
Yeah, quick pause before we go any further into the book. Let's talk about the implementation of last week's book. Maybe I'll start. So mine was just being able to try new things, and as you can see here, this is a completely new thing for us. And so I would say that I accomplished that goal of mine. So I think if we can continue on this path and this process, good things will come. Why don't you tell us a little about your progress?
Yeah, so my implementation was to take more of a definite optimism mindset. And just to reiterate what that was, it was to begin with that end goal in mind, to have that end goal to work up to so you can work backwards and determine what you need to do today to get to that end goal. So I did end up formulating my end goal and writing it down, but I am going to keep that private. But this is going to constantly go through iterations. So it's sort of a continuous process that will always be changing. With that being said, continuing with this journey is a great step in the right direction. And I will have to determine more actions that I can do right now to get to that end goal.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Now going back into the book, the book was laid out in 4 parts essentially, and within each part there were multiple principles, which kind of led you to the end of each part. Just for this right now, the first part was fundamental techniques in handling people. Part 2 was 6 ways to make people like you. Part 3 happened to be how to win people to your way of thinking. Part 4 was a leader and how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. So I think now we're going to kind of go into a couple of the principles that we thought, we pulled the most out of, and how we were able to translate those into being able to see them work in real life.
Yeah, 100%. You want to kick us off with principle number 1?
Yeah. Okay. This one was funny. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. Right. It's stated in the book, 99% of the time, people don't criticize themselves. And the examples that Carnegie was talking about were criminals, for instance. And he went to say that in their eyes, they were doing good for the people that needed help the most. So they didn't see anything wrong with what they were doing. Was kind of how I took that principle.
Yeah, and then looking at that too, you criticizing someone else isn't going to change anything. It would just make them resent you more. So it also mentioned in the book, criticisms are like homing pigeons. They'll always return home, meaning they'll always come back to haunt you in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so that was the first principle and the first part. The second principle was the big secret of dealing with people, and that is to give honest and sincere appreciation. He talked about flattery a lot, and so he kind of defined what flattery really is, and it's giving appreciation but not being sincerely about it. And so the more you deal with people, the more you're able to see who's who really means what they're saying and who doesn't. And so I work in an environment where I see countless people a day, and so I've really been able to put in some of these practices into real life, and it's been kind of astonishing the reactions I get from people by just smiling. And we'll actually hit on that a little bit later. It, just smile at people. Just ask people how their day is going, but be sincere about it. Because people can really pick up on if you really care about them or not. And it doesn't have to be to the point where it's weird or creepy, but just ask someone how their day is, give them a smile, and see how they reciprocate.
Yeah, 100%, because they will sense if you're not being sincere. And they even touch on in the book flattery. Flattery is telling the other person what they already think about themselves. And this won't lead to any sort of progress in making friendships or anything like that. And another point too is a quote from Charles Schwab comes up a lot in this book. And it says, "If I like anything, I am hearty in my approbation and lavish in my praise." So as you're going through your life, just remember that quote and maybe repeat it over and over, and make it a principle in your everyday life.
Did you want to hit on principle 3, or did you just want to go to the second part here?
I'll touch on it real quick. So the last one of part 1 is arousing the person an eager want. The analogy he opened up with is, for some reason, fish prefer worms. So what does that mean? Everybody performs acts in their life because they want something. So you have to give people what they want in order to win friends, win business, win in your family life, etc.
Yeah. So going into part 2, this was 6 ways to make people like you. Kind of the principle for the first part of this was become genuinely interested in people. And he goes on to even say that you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years trying to get people to be interested in you. Which that kind of resonated with me, being in college, right? And just being able to conversate with uh, a diverse group of people, professors, friends, random people. The more you're really engaged in the other person, the more they'll be engaged in you.
Yeah,
So that was my biggest takeaway from that part.
once again, it has to be sincere. If it's not sincere, they'll fish that out right away. We are interested in others when they are interested in us.
Absolutely. Yeah, this part, the second principle is here. Smile, like I briefly mentioned earlier, requires zero effort, and it goes a long way, right? Just seeing a random person smile at you, you're kind of like, maybe I smile back, maybe you don't. Who knows? It's just it depends on how you perceive the smile and how interested you are in continuing that relationship with that person, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The smile is something that requires no effort, but you'll be surprised what it can do in the life of other people. They say action speaks louder than words, and smiling is one simple action that you can do every single day to every single person that you see that might just brighten and make their day in general. And if you don't really feel like smiling, force yourself to, because actions will follow actions follow feeling. So by regulating action, which is more under your direct control, we can indirectly regulate your feelings, which is not directly under your control.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you kind of hit on part 3 here, and then I will combine part 4 and 5, or principle 4 and 5 rather. Sorry.
Yeah. So one of the next principle was you have to be able to remember people's names. People associate their names as a source of, it's like the rock, their foundation. And if you're not able to remember people's names, it really shows a detriment to their personality, their sense of being, etc. So just a quick tip, and Napoleon III actually used this, and Dale Carnegie used him as an example in the book. To be able to remember everybody you meet, you have to be able to associate the name with that person. So what does that mean? How do you do this? To be able to do this, when you're having a conversation, repeat the name over and over again. Ask them to spell it out if it's more of a complex name. Associate the name with their personal features or things they like to do. And all of this stuff will help you recall that name later. And even after the conversation is done, go and write it down, look at it a few more times, and this will all help with that recalling principle of remembering their name.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I kind of feel like principle 4 and 5 kind of come together to an extent. Principle 4 is a easy way to become a good conversationalist, and principle 5 is how to interest people. He goes on to say that to be a good listener, encourage others to talk about themselves. In order to be a good conversationalist, you have to be a good listener. And so, along with that, being a good listener also kind of correlates with adapt to the person's interest, right? If you're talking about sports and you see the person have no interest in sports, quit talking about sports, right? Shoot, maybe he likes math, maybe he likes books, who knows? Talk about their interests, get them interested in what they're interested in, and then you can just build a conversation off that. And I think that was huge. I feel like a lot of people have a hard time just being able to build a conversation. And I've struggled in the past, you've struggled in the past, we both know that. But the fact that we now know these principles and now know that in order to be a good conversationalist in general, you have to be a good listener first.
Yeah, and I'm going to expand on talking to their interest. In addition to doing that, you can also talk about their accomplishments and ask questions that they will enjoy answering. And it goes back to one of the principles earlier: to be interesting, be interested. The ability to capture that person's attention by making them talk about themselves is huge. Mm-hmm. Teddy Roosevelt even knew this principle, and he saw the royal road to a person's heart is the ability to talk about things that they treasure the most. So awesome job describing that, Chris.
Yeah, I almost feel like I got the most out of this part. We'll kind of go into part 3 here, and this is kind of where you can say the boat got shaky, the boat got rocky. It was talking about how to win people to your way of thinking. If you dive a little more into that, it's more about an argumentative side of things. And so, my biggest problem from this part would be, I'm not a very confrontational person, and I wouldn't say Landon is either. And so now, however, if you do find yourself kind of a hothead and kind of just mad at the world, then yeah, I think this part would really come out to you, and you would have a really good takeaway experience from this part. However, like I said before, I don't feel like we're not very confrontational. Would you say we're confrontational from any standpoint?
I want to say so, but in terms of just reading over this section in general, even though we might not be confrontational, we still have to look for those golden nuggets. And this goes through anything. You're sitting in a school lecture and it's the most boring thing ever. Look for those golden nuggets. You're driving to work and you're listening to a podcast and it's kind of putting you to sleep. Listen for those golden nuggets. So as we'll go into some of the main points and try to touch on some of those golden nuggets.
Yeah, and kind of along with that, so the first principle here was you can't win an argument. How many times have we heard that you can't win an argument? The only way to win is you may win, but to lose the opponent's goodwill, right? I kind of messed that up from a standpoint. You may win, but you also lose the opponent's goodwill is how I meant for it to come out. Obviously, that didn't happen. No big deal. We'll just go to the next principle here. Landon?
100%. Next principle is show respect for the other person's opinions and never say that they are wrong.
Great point. However, principle 3, if you're wrong, admit it. Okay? Be the bigger person. You were wrong, admit it. If you can admit it quickly and empathetically, the better off you will be, I think, from an argumentative standpoint.
Yeah, and just beat people to the case. So if you know you're in the wrong and you messed up, just go out and say all the derogatory things that the other person is already thinking or wants to say or intends to say. Say it before they even get the chance to. And this will make them take a side of more pity against you. They will sympathize with you, all in terms of just beating them to the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you okay if I go to principle 6 here? I actually really enjoyed the part from this principle. If you feel like you want to hit on 4 or 5 real quick, I'll let you.
I'm just going to do a quick overview of 4 and 5, and then we'll keep moving. 4 was to begin in a friendly way. And a quote that stuck out to me from this section is from Abraham Lincoln, is a drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall. So what does that mean? Sweetness, kindness, sincerity makes a huge difference in terms of talking to and getting at the root causes of the complaints or arguments coming from other people. So that one tiny drop of honey, that one tiny act of kindness that you show in your conversation will go more than throwing out gallons of gall or negative comments or other things in the like. And then moving to the next principle is get the other person to say yes and yes back to back. So like, what does this mean? Like, what does this do? Most of the time, people are concerned with, they don't really know how to approach the person and get what they need out of them. So they'll approach the person and ask them a question and they'll get a no response right away. What is this? What does that no response do? It triggers all the defense mechanisms in the body. So that conversation going forward will be negative and he will just want to repel you. But if you get them to say yes and yes back to back, think of it like you're playing billiards. You hit that ball and it's going to take a lot of force to be able to get that ball going back in the opposite direction. So if you get him saying yes, yes, it's going to constantly propel forward and it's going to take a lot to get him to say no.
I really enjoy how you brought pool into this conversation. That was an analogy I didn't think we'd be able to use. I think you did a great job from that standpoint, though. I'll just give you a little bit of appreciation there.
Did that make sense, though? Like the whole...
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely,
awesome. Yeah. I'll let you take it away with the next one then.
Yeah, so the reason I feel like this principle kind of correlated to me a little bit more was because I guess I'll introduce principle first, and it is let the other person do a great deal of talking. And again, it goes back to, in order to be a good conversationalist, you have to be a good listener first. And so if you're a good listener, you can kind of use that to your advantage. So you're going to be able to pick up on things that, the person may not even think that you're listening, and that also comes into the staying engaged and really staying focused on what that person has to say will also help you gain respect from that standpoint, I think. Have you ever been in a lecture and you'll see all these people kind of dozing off, not paying attention, and then you'll see the one kid who actually is paying attention, and professor, he realizes that, he knows that. So if the kind of more you pay attention to people and become a learner of being able to listen, I think the more you'll be able to appreciate what people have to say. So I really thought that the sixth principle here kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback right off of that. This works in a variety of ways. In the book, it gives a couple of examples. One was in an interview. Someone came in so prepared that he had the founder of the company he was interviewing with, his background story all figured out. So he asked him a question that he started from nothing and a few other tidbits, and that made the interviewee or the interviewer talk to the interviewee about himself for an hour. And right after the interview, he talked to his coworker and he said, "I think this guy's the one." So, and another example is you can use this with your kids in your home life. Being able to listen intently to them goes an extreme distance. Once they open up to you and they know that they can trust you with what's going on inside their life, it will open a multitude of doors in your relationship with your kids, friends, significant others, etc.
Absolutely. I guess are you interested in these other principles here? I mean, we can briefly touch on them if you. I feel like we should just briefly touch on them and then go on to part four.
Yeah, let's do it. So the next one we'll get into is let the other person feel that the idea is theirs. So how do you do this? You have to be able to put subtle hints in the back of their mind throughout the conversation, and even if it doesn't click right then or the next day, maybe 2 days from now they'll come back and a light bulb will go off. But they don't know that you've been placing those subtle hits anymore. So they think that it is their idea and it's brilliant, amazing, even though
Yeah,
like you planted that in there.
yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like you're letting the plant kind of grow, aren't you?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
100%.
I guess the principle eight here was the formula that works wonders for you. Try honestly to see from the other person's ideas and desires. Um, there's a reason why other people think and do what they do. And so if you can really figure out why they're doing what they're doing or why they feel like why they're feeling this certain type of way, I think you'll be able to connect on a I wouldn't say a deeper level per se, but having a better understanding of what's really going on their side of things will kind of help you come to uh, resolve the issue in the middle.
Yeah, empathy, empathy, empathy. Other people may be totally wrong in what they're saying, what they're doing, but don't condemn them. Anybody will do that, and anybody will. Try to get in their shoes and understand where they're coming from. And just practicing this in your day-to-day life, you'll be astonished the wonders that it will work for you.
Yeah.
So moving into the next one here is be sympathetic with other people's ideas and desires. In the book, it gives a quick stat: 3/4 of the people you will ever meet are hungering and thirsting for sympathy. So sympathize with them. Give them what they want.
All right. Principle 10 was appeal to the nobler motives. I guess when you hear that word, the very first thing that comes into my head is noble, which is king, queen. They're automatically put to a higher standard, I feel like. And so I'm not saying put someone else on a pedestal, but let them know that you feel like what they're doing is good, right? Kind of quote unquote praise them from that standpoint. I think is how I kind of interpreted that principle.
Yeah, I would say the exact same thing there. Moving on to the next one, dramatize your ideas. And the title of the chapter was "The Movies Do It, TV Does It. Why don't you do it?" You have to be able to make the truth or the point you're trying to emphasize interesting in order to receive any form of attention for that point from other people.
Yeah, and the 12th principle here is throw down a challenge. Everybody likes a good challenge, whether you're competitive or not. Okay, I guess I not necessarily if you're competitive or not. I think everybody likes a good challenge. So yeah, we'll kind of just go on.
Yeah, it's the thrill of the game, the desire for competition, the desire for win. You have to be able to instill that in your business, in your daily life, if you're ever going to really move the needle. Money will motivate, but there is a limit on that. So to be able to surpass that limit, being able to throw down a challenge, be able to create that competitive environment within your business, within your daily life, will be huge in terms of impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great point, kind of to. I think we just kind of briefly talk about the next four, or what is it, six principles? I think
Yeah,
9 principles.
I say we just rapid fire them
Let's do it.
and just get into the next section. So we'll just go back and forth, hit you with the principles, and then move on to the next section.
Start us off.
Principle one, I guess real quick before we get into the principles, part four is all about how to be a leader, how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. So principle one, if begin with praise and honest appreciation.
Yeah, principle 2 is call attention to people's mistake indirectly.
Next one, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person's.
Really quick, I will touch on the fourth point here. Nobody likes to take orders, right? And so if you're asking questions or kind of again planting the seed, it gives them the opportunity to feel like it was their idea. And so I really did enjoy that one, which was ask questions before giving orders.
Yeah, kind of creating that suggestion, not necessarily the command. Moving on to the next one, let the other person save face, meaning like keep the respect between people and avoid humiliation.
Yeah, the next one was praise the slightest bit of improvement.
Then give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. This just kind of means, in terms of communicating with people, communicate that they're doing a good job, communicate that they did a good job in the past, but say, like, you know how much more capable they are. And this will just drive them to be able to, like, meet your demands almost.
Yeah, push them to the next level to an extent.
Yes.
Right? Help
Yes.
people maximize their maximize what am I looking for? Maximize their potential. Right. Yep. And so okay, so this one goes into use encouragement regarding mistake. So make the mistake that happened seem easy to correct, whether it is or not. That if you kind of downplay like the mistake that the person made, it'll help them recover and continue to grow.
Yeah. And then last one here before moving on, make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggested. So this goes back to arousing that eager want in people to just appeal to them that they're doing it for their benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is kind of where we go into the key takeaways we got from these.
Yeah, so we'll do a general takeaway, and then we'll kind of drill into each part real quick, and then go from there. So first, we're just kind of general takeaways that I had throughout the book. He used a multitude of key figures. So he used Teddy Roosevelt, Charles Schwab, Sigmund Freud, Andrew Carnegie, Abraham Lincoln, Shakespeare, Socrates, and many others. So why did he pull continuous quotes, stories from these key leaders in history? It's because they all display the skills that this entire book talks about. So what kind of hit me there was we have to take the time to study people who have mastered skills that we desire. So maybe browsing the web, reading, just like we are here, doing research on their past, etc.
Yeah, I guess one of the general takeaways for me, it's crazy how simple these skills really are, but as everyday people, we kind of neglect them consistently. And so I think if we can kind of add one or two of these in every day, every couple days, once a week, I think you'll really see an improvement on your social skills to an extent, I would say.
Yeah, and still reminders somehow, whether that's going back to this book, writing a post-it on your mirror, some way, some form, place those constant reminders throughout your day just to keep instilling these principles on an everyday basis.
Yeah. Okay. So now we'll kind of break it off into individual parts. For me, it was a little appreciation goes a long way, I think. And so the more you appreciate something or someone, the more they'll appreciate you.
Yeah, and just to make sure that the viewers are following, this is part one, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so this is dealing with the fundamental techniques and handling people. So one of my main takeaways from part one was just the idea of empathy, just being able to put yourself in the shoes of other people and walking a mile in their shoes, to really get an understanding of why they do what they do, why they say what to do, etc. And to this point, you have to be able to understand the flip side of that too. most people don't appreciate, and they criticize. So as an individual, you have to be able to understand that opposite side of the equation. You have to be able to take criticism and take away those golden nuggets that are within the criticism. And
Yeah.
like you have to know that even though if people don't appreciate you, you just have to find that within you, because people don't really carry this out on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Part two here was for me, it really kind of, I guess, kind of builds off part one. But like I said, like the little things matter more than you may realize. And so that kind of goes along with the appreciation thing. But if you continue to do the little things, eventually they'll add up into bigger things and lead you farther down the road, I feel like, from that standpoint.
Boom. Well put. I ditto everything you just said. The little things are critical. You have to be able to push yourself to do things for other people that require some effort. And back to this main point, you have to be sincere in when you're doing these little things. And one more thing that I took away from this part two is you are able to ensure your own happiness if you're able to control your own thoughts. Everything depends on your inner conditions. That's why something as simple as smiling, once it enhances, is a simple action that enhances your feelings, will elevate your mood. So it's all that mental attitude that you can form yourself.
Yeah. Leading into part three here, no one wins from an argument, regardless. Because at the end of the day, the person who lost the argument still has the same feeling about he did before he lost the argument, right? Nobody's going to change from that standpoint. So nobody truly wins from an argument.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna touch on something that I touched on in part one too, is just empathy. You have to be able to see where the other person is coming from in the argument and use your social skills and the skills that you learned throughout this book to de-escalate that argument into more of a friendly conversation.
Yeah. Regarding part four, I think you have a very good point on this. And so I think I'll kind of let you take the lead on this one and then just kind of add mine in at the very end.
Yeah, so kind of going back to why we just rapid fired part four's main principles at the end is because realistically, they are all just a combination of all the skills from the first 3 chapters.
Yeah,
So
there is no clear way to become a good leader, in my opinion. It's just kind of, you kind of have to build on top of each other in order to get to the point where people feel like you're a good leader. You can't, I don't think you can volunteer as a leader. And I said this for years. That has a completely different story behind it. A leader is chosen, not volunteered. That's my opinion. So
awesome. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, just practice.
yeah, I think I kind of want to go into the what we pulled from this book that we just read, and what are we planning to implement for the next week's challenge?
So for me, I'm going to combine the principle of become generally interested in other people, smiling, and remembering that person's name. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to get out of my comfort zone a little bit, and I'm going to introduce myself to 5 random people and find a way to compliment them, and not only take note of their reaction, but kind of understand how that reaction makes me feel.
I think that's absolutely phenomenal for you, and I'm honestly excited to see you do that, because I know how you are in person, right? And so I think this is really one of the only ways to improve socially from that standpoint. For me, I'm going to try to smile. I already smile a lot, but I just kind of want to see the reaction that I'm getting from people when I smile. Do they smile back? Do they start a conversation? Do I start the conversation? Kind of how do I play along with the energy that they're giving off from the smile?
Yeah, and I think you're in a great position to do that. The job you have throughout the summer is a great place to implement
Absolutely.
this principle. So I am excited to see what the reactions you get from taking this into effect next week.
And honestly, as soon as I read that, because again, it was like in the very beginning of the book, I started to implement it already. And I will wait to give you the consensus of that little experiment that I've been doing. But all I'll say is Carnegie, he's right. So
Awesome. Yeah, we'll report back next week. Now, just one more things before we finish up here is we'll just give our favorite quote from the book. And Chris, I'll let you take it off.
yeah. So one of the first ones I had here was, what would Lincoln do? Early in the book, he talked about how Lincoln wrote was it an article of somebody, and the guy challenged him to a shootout, right? A shootout to the death. It didn't happen, but it really changed the way Lincoln thought about things. And so that's when he decided that he would never criticize anybody ever again. And so working in the industry that I'm currently working in, you can criticize all you want, right? And so I'm really going to try to adapt the mindset of what would Lincoln do.
Boom. WWLD.
What would Lincoln do? You're totally right.
Yeah, and I love my quotes, so I have two more for you guys this week. The first one is, I think what Dale Carnegie did is he put this in his mirror, just sort of as a reminder, kind of like I plugged just a few minutes before. And I think I might do the same here. And so here it goes. I shall pass this way but once. Any good, therefore, I can do, or any kindness that I can show human beings, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. I think that's just a great daily reminder. And then the second one's more kind of an analogy. The reason why rivers and seas receive the homage of 100 mountain streams is that they keep below them. Thus, they are able to reign over all the mountain streams. So what does that mean? If you wish to be above men, you have to be able to put yourself below them. If you wish to be in front of them, you have to place yourself behind them. It's all about seeing things from another person's perspective. Let them talk about themselves. It's really hits on almost every principle that was really encompassed in this book.
Yeah. My next quote actually deals with the thing that I'm going to try to implement, and it is, action speaks louder than words, and a smile says, I like you. You make me happy. I'm glad to see you. It's like when you walk into the house and your dog is wagging his tail and jumping all over you. It's excited, right? And so, just smiling at the dog, you'll get it all riled up and things. So I thought that quote was pretty good.
Awesome. Any other points for this book before we wrap it up for the week?
I think we I think we hit a lot of them. So
Awesome.
yeah. I guess I can kind of go into the next book, and it is Straight from the Gut by Jack Welch. This book is we get the chance to learn from arguably one of the greatest CEOs ever, and just his ideas on the correct way to manage people. For those who do not know, he was GE's CEO, correct? Yes. That's what from the brief amount that I know about him. It even goes. This is kind of funny. The quote on the very front of the book is, "Jack is the Tiger Woods of management." I can't wait. I'm in. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah. And if we encourage every one of you to read along with us and participate in the discussion, whether that be leaving us feedback for this book, letting us know on points that we missed out on, or even giving suggestions for the next book.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that wraps up this week's episode. We just want to thank all of you for tuning in. And Chris, you want to plug the social medias again?
Yeah, absolutely. It's bound to improve on everything. Look us up, you'll find us.
Go check us out.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in this week.